Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Blitzkrieg, our own strategic affairs show. Today we have a very special guest, Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia. General Bhatia was DGMO while he was serving in the Indian Army. He's commanded a corps on the line of actual control, commanded a div on the line of control with Pakistan. He's the former colonel of the Parachute Regiment. Currently, Director, Center for Joint Warfare Studies, St. John's. Sir, Jai Hind and a very warm welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity on your show. I look forward to the discussions.
Sir, regarding China, everybody wants to know. There are drumbeats of war saying that we should do this and that, and all of it, whatever is discussed on social media or from the safety of the social media or the television studio, is always the drumbeat of war. But what we are trying to say here is it's more important to understand the mind of the Chinese. How do they think? How do the Chinese plan? What is their concept of warfare? Is our concept of warfare the same as the Chinese concept of warfare? When we say something, what do we understand? And what does the Chinese soldier understand or the Chinese general understand? So my first question is, when we were talking, sir, you mentioned about the philosophy of the Chinese when they fight, the three-war concept. Can you take us through this, please, sir?
Yeah, Gaurav, you're right. We have to understand the Chinese intent, their aim, and their strategies, as also the larger picture. China follows the three warfare strategy. The three warfares include public opinion, which is addressed for the domestic consumption, as also for the international fora. The second is the psychological operations or the information war, as we call it now, or the influence operations, and they are adapted. They got structures, they got systems, and they have a lot of focus on the information war. And the third is the legal warfare, in which they want to ensure that the world understands the Chinese narrative, and legally they can say that they have a just cause and jus ad bellum. So these are the three warfare strategy of China. What China needs to understand also is that this three warfare strategy needs to be backed by good tactics. You see, this old dictum in the military: good strategy but bad tactics will surely you lose the war. But in case you have good tactics, even with poor strategy, you may win many battles. So that is something we have to understand what China is doing, and especially China's influence operations. The information war has to be seen in the Indian context. Now, India is, as you know, a democratic country, a democratic nation. We have the right to freedom, and we can be interfered with by China's information war. We also have to understand that China has data of most Indians, and fortunately, the government has banned 59 apps of China. So all these apps ask you for data, they ask you permission for data, and that data is stored at China, and this data can be used against our thought process, data can be used to change our behavior patterns, data can be used in what we call virtual societal warfare. And China in the present context is actually carrying in a very good, effective influence operations and information warfare by doing less and projecting more.
Sir, great, sir. Now you speak about sir, this three warfare concept, and you said that the first thing is public opinion. Now, how has China waged a public opinion war against India in the current context of what is happening in Ladakh, sir? So how have they tried to manipulate public opinion against India, whether in India or in China? Can you just shed some light on this?
Yes, Gaurav. You see, China, if you look at the overall construct of what is happening, and that has to be seen to understand the what's happening along the line of actual control, China is indulging in military coercive tactics. And this it has been doing, or a strategy rather I would say, and this has been doing not only with India, because India is the larger neighbor, it threatens China's supremacy in Asia, but also in South China Sea, East Sea, Korea, Philippines, you also see Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia. So this is something which China is, it's a tried and tested strategy of China. So China is doing that, and this now with India, what it has done is instead of, earlier it used to come in only one place, like Depsang 2013, I was the DGMO that time. In April, it happened only in Depsang. Then in Chumar, it happened when President Xi was visiting India. Then it happened in Dolam. We had to, actually, it was, what we call it Doklam, but it is actually Dolam. In 2017, we had a 73-day standoff. But this is different. This China is carrying on multiple places. It's carrying on transgressions, and that is an indicator. And it has started off with information war and public opinion making. Alongside that, whether it is in the domestic China's this thing, international fora, and especially addressing the Indian public. So that they are projecting as they have come very deep, they have come here to stay, there is build-up taking place, there are war clouds on. So that is part of the information warfare to pressurize India, decision makers basically, to hurry them up to take decisions which may not be optimal for India but would favor China. So we have to understand this concept of information war, where they target the decision maker's mind, they target public opinion, public sentiment, and this public sentiment, public opinion contributes to a suboptimal decision making at the political military level. So that is what China has been doing, and it has succeeded by infiltrating into our social media networks. We have about 500 million internet users. So they are all on social media, most of them are Chinese apps. They are also addressing our media by giving out narratives which are more suited to them and which are anti-India narratives. So this is all we have to see. The position of China remains that India should not, and I say that again, should not in any case challenge China for supremacy in Asia, because China is looking at being the, it's looking at a bipolar world, and India is a balancing power. India is the only one which can balance the world equations post COVID-19 world order, whether it's the US, whether it's China. So China is pressurizing India into trying to do what it wants it to do. And that is the bigger picture of China, which we should see, understand, and defeat.
So, then you spoke about PSYOPs, you spoke about information warfare, and this is a topic which is very close to my heart. I've been speaking about it. I try and educate people to the best of my ability that IW is very important, and I often say that a youngster with a laptop, sir, in today's age is far more dangerous than an infantry battalion. I mean, in today's day and age, if he has the software, the training, the motivation, and the hardware, this person, this youngster with a laptop can cause you far more damage. And somehow we don't seem to be understanding it with the level that we should be understanding it in India. Now the realization is obviously come upon. We're talking about, sir, we're talking about cyber warfare, etc. in India is being spoken about. There is a structure which is being made. It was discussed in the media openly, but we are not till the level of the Chinese, or not to that level, so that is desired. My question to you is, how is China waging information war upon us? You spoke about IW, sir, PSYOPs. So under the same category, PSYOPs and IW, how is China doing it to us under, if I may call it, the Ladakh overhang, sir?
Right, Gaurav. Now, China is, they have mastered the information war and influence operations. We, like you rightly said, are, a little slow at it, our system lethargic, and we don't have no dearth of resources. Potential is there, but we need the system and the structures right, and we have succeeded in doing so. Like Kargil victories as much owed to the media as to the indomitable spirit of the soldier. So it is not that we have not been able to do it earlier. We have been able to do it, but that is not information war against the adversary. It was for our own people. What China in this particular case today, for the last 6 weeks or 7 weeks, is doing is the psychological warfare operations, and Galwan was, I think, a part of that. Galwan may have spiraled out, it may be local action, but the way it was handled thereafter, when China refused to give its own casualties and kept on insisting that India did something wrong in Galwan, and how Indian troops came to Galwan, and when they were disengagement process taking place. So that is one example. Another example is constantly shifting focus. Let's say in this present context, from Nakula it shifted to Pengongso, from Pengongso it shifted to Galwan, from Galwan it is now shifting to Dipsang Plains. So this is a constant shift, and also there are reports of it build up in opposite Tawang, opposite Valong. So these are tidbits which are coming in, and when you piece them together, they are part of a psychological operation which China is telling the Indian public, look, I am building up, I am building up, and I am building up, and I can build up and cause you harm. So that is what it is doing. The build up may be a few men, a few units, but it is projecting as a massive build up all along the 3, 4, 8 kilometers of borders. So that is doing at the tactical level, at the operational level, and also at the strategic level. Another part of the information war, if I may say so, is the mouthpiece of the Chinese, the Global Times. And if you read Global Times, it is going from one extreme to the other extreme. It will have an article talking of diplomacy, talking of military talks, and again at the same time, it will tell the power of China. It will reflect in a very big way, and it will talk of it's talking of cyber, that what is the cyber warfare capabilities of China, and so on and so forth. So India has to understand that they need to believe their own media, and our media has to understand that they have to play the media reporting is objective. I'm not saying that. Our media is very responsible. I'm not even trying to say. But there are times when some do get carried away by what is appearing in the Chinese influence operations, and that gets reported. Unfortunately, some of us start believing in it. So the scary part is the belief that China is doing much more than what it is actually doing. India, on the other hand, stance is very clear. It is no blinking, no brinkmanship, and we are playing it very steady. We are very firm on the ground. We have the capabilities, matching capabilities, and our deployment has been equitable and proportional. But we are not going into a media sort of a operation as such, and I suppose at this point rightly so, because we need to understand that we have maintained peace and tranquility for 45 years, and continued peace and tranquility is good for China, it is good for India, but it's better for China.
Now, the third part of the three warfare concepts that you spoke about was legal warfare. And this is what intrigues me the most, because public opinion and PSYOPs I understand. Legal warfare, sir, how is China waging legal war upon India in the current context of the Ladakh standoff? So what are they doing to us legally? What does this mean, and how is China actually executing on ground?
Gaurav, at the grassroots level, now let's just go down to the basics. Galwan, they abided by the agreement in letter, not in letter and spirit, but in letter only, where 96 agreement says that military force will not be used. So they did not fire a weapon, and they had a pre-planned ambush sort of a thing. It was premeditated. This thing, they had carried weapons of primitive weapons, which is clubs and spikes and nails, and they had prepared for it. So that is what when I say legal warfare, legally what has happened is the 96 agreement, they have followed in letter, not in spirit. So that was at the grassroots level where they were prepared. They enticed the Indian troops in ambush. They attacked the Indian troops out there. Unfortunately for them, Indian troops behaved exceedingly well, and they took the better of the PLA in many ways. Though it is not a balance sheet, but I believe their casualties are more than double. So that is where China, I think, has gone wrong. But legally, they covered themselves off by not firing a shot, and that is where I call it legal warfare at the grassroots level. If you go further than that at the operational and the diplomatic level, the talks are on at the diplomatic level. You find maps being released which talk of the September 59 line, which talk of the earlier agreements, and these maps are not actually the maps of the agreements. These are maps alluding to the agreements. So that is a sort of a legal warfare which China is now doing. It is doing the same thing in South China Sea. It is doing the same thing in the island, the artificial island is created. So that is part of the China's legal warfare. It did that in Doklam also, where it brought up a treaty which was never signed by them.
Sir, there are many experts who believe that the internal structure of China is actually fragile. It is not as robust as the Chinese would have us believe, because the Chinese are terrified of Twitter, they're terrified of WhatsApp, they're terrified of YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all sorts of platforms on social media, because what they fear most is their own population. So they have this draconian law for Hong Kong, and the Chinese also say that there's this great Chinese firewall. I have been to China personally many times, sir. You send an email to China from India, and if it contains any word which the Chinese Communist Party does not like, that email actually gets delivered after a few days. It's not instant. Only if it's clean will it get delivered in a few minutes, otherwise it will not. So that is the kind of structure that they have put in place. My question to you is, General Bhatia, is that, why this fear? Why does China fear its own population? Because there was, and I'll just give you a brief background and a structure to it, sir. The framing is that, China has exchanged material well-being for freedom. So China says to its citizens that I will make sure that you have a certain standard of living, and in turn, I want all your freedoms. So you cannot speak, you cannot write, you cannot air your opinion openly, you cannot have any other party apart from the Communist Party, and in return, I will give you money so you have a decent lifestyle. Now, this is certainly not working in Hong Kong. There are freedom protests in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong says that it's had enough. Taiwan is protesting. The world is up in arms. My question to you, sir, is why does China fear its own people?
Gaurav, if you look at the core national interests of China, the first thing is the dominance of the China Communist Party, the CCP. That is the dominant party, and everyone has to follow the one party rule out there. So that is something which we have to understand, that China's survival is as a communist nation. Their core interest is the Communist Party, and it is the Communist Party which controls the PLA, Communist Party which controls the policies, and there's a one party rule, like you rightly said. And China understands the power of social media and the media, and that is why a very strict control on platforms like Twitter, like Facebook, and they would not allow it. And this is a deal between the Communist Party of China and the citizens of China, that I will look after your well-being and you look after my party interests, and let us have one party system. But however, this well-being of people, of Chinese people, is not equitably distributed as we may like to believe. There are dissenting voices out there. There are dissenting voices among the poor, among the labor, and also among the intellectuals. So it is the middle class which is being looked after, and the two ends of the spectrum of the population, that is the intellectual, the well-read class, and the poor and the peasants and the labor. So they are not being very well looked after. So there is a problem out there which the Communist Party realizes that, and that is one of the reasons after the coronavirus, there is definite an attempt by China to divert the attention from internal failures, domestic failures of the Communist Party, and hence you find a militarily active China in South China Sea and along the line of actual control, and also with Taiwan and supporting Korea. So that is what the Chinese philosophy is all about. Chinese aim, national interest is very categorical. Chinese Communist Party is predominant. Everything moves by the Chinese Communist Party, and the PLA is the organ and the instrument of the Chinese Communist Party and not of China.
My last question to you, General, is what do you see the future looking like as far as this Ladakh standoff is concerned? The Indian Army has acquitted itself extremely well. The Air Force is on alert. The Navy is on alert. We have our boys there. They're holding fast. Very quickly, sir, in a minute, how do you see the future?
See, Gaurav, I think China this time has bitten more than it can chew. They never estimated or appreciated the resolve of a risen, responsible, resurgent India and the military. At the military level, Indian Army is by far one of the most battle-hardened, combat-rich armies, especially when it comes to high-altitude warfare, mountain warfare. There is no match whatsoever for our soldiers, for our leaders out there. And as a nation, I think we have performed exceedingly well. The nation has stood behind in the crisis. Everyone is together. And China did not expect this response. So that is something which China did not cater for, and China thought that it would be a rollover and they could, browbeat us into doing what they want to do. Because, like I said, it's a bigger game. It is definitely got to believe it. It is not the DBO road, because had they wanted to do it, they would have done it earlier. It's a much bigger picture what China is doing. So now that China has done that, I think it is there for a long haul. But in the end, I am of the firm belief that China and India will resolve the issue at the diplomatic, military and political level, and will go back to status quo ante as was prevailing in April of 2020.
Thank you very much for joining us, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful discussion with Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia, in which he brought out the three warfare concept, the mindset of the Chinese. Why do they wage war the way they do? And they look at psychological operations, information warfare, the politics of the entire thing. It is one joint narrative which dovetails into the Chinese methodology of warfare. I'll meet you in a couple of days with another edition of Blitzkrieg. Till then, from my team and I, Jai Hind.